My MBA graduation party was in full swing at my parents' house. The backyard was decorated with congratulations banners, tables laden with food, about 50 family members and friends celebrating my completion of business school. The May afternoon was perfect. Sunny, warm, everyone in good spirits. My younger sister Vanessa had been dominating conversations since people started arriving, showing everyone her Instagram on her phone. "I just hit 85,000 followers last week," she was saying to a group of aunts near the appetizer table. "My engagement rate is insane, like 8% on most posts. Brands are starting to reach out about sponsored content." Mom was glowing with pride. Vanessa has such a gift for social media. She's built this whole platform while working full-time at the boutique. "I made $400 last month from affiliate links," Vanessa continued. "If I can get to 150,000 followers, I could potentially make this my full-time job. Influencer marketing is the future." I stood near the punch bowl watching the performance with mild amusement. This was typical. Vanessa found something new to be passionate about every few months, announced it was going to be her big break, received lavish family encouragement, then quietly moved on when the next shiny thing caught her attention. "And what about you, Isabel?" Anne-Marie asked, turning to me. "What are your plans now that you've finished your MBA?" Before I could answer, Dad interjected from across the patio. "Isabel's still figuring things out. She's been writing in her spare time, but you know how competitive publishing is. We're encouraging her to find a stable job first. Writing is more of a hobby for Isabel," Mom added. "The MBA will help her get into consulting or corporate strategy." I'd heard these assumptions for the past 3 years. While completing my MBA, I'd been working on a book about business strategy and behavioral economics. My family knew I was writing something, but had dismissed it as a side project, a creative outlet that would never amount to anything serious. What they didn't know was that I'd signed a 3-book deal with a major publisher 6 months ago. What they didn't know was that the advance was $1.4 million. What they didn't know was a lot of things. That's when Uncle Dave arrived. He'd been delayed by traffic from the airport, flying in from New York where he worked as a literary agent. Uncle Dave was Dad's younger brother, the family outsider who'd chosen books and art over business and stability. We'd grown close over the years, bonding over our shared love of reading and writing. He made his way through the crowd, congratulating me with a warm hug, then spotted the cake table. "This looks amazing," he said, admiring the elaborate graduation cake. Then he turned to me with a proud smile. "And speaking of amazing, congratulations on that $1.4 million book advance, Isabel. When your agent called to tell me Summit Press had made the offer, I was thrilled for you." The backyard went completely silent. Vanessa's voice cut off mid-sentence about Instagram algorithms. My parents' heads snapped toward us, their faces frozen in shock. Aunt Marie's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. Even the kids playing in the corner seemed to sense something important had happened. "Book advance," Mom whispered, her voice sharp with confusion. I set down my punch cup carefully. "Yes, Uncle Dave helped connect me with my agent. The deal closed in January." Uncle Dave continued, completely oblivious to the stunned silence spreading through the party. 3 books over 5 years, right? With the first manuscript already complete. That's a strong position to negotiate from. Your agent did excellent work. "The first book is in final edits now," I confirmed. "It publishes in September." Dad had walked over, his face pale. "Isabel, what is Dave talking about? What book deal?" Uncle Dave looked around, finally registering everyone's shocked expressions. "Oh, you didn't? They don't know about the Summit Press contract." "We haven't discussed it in detail," I said evenly. "What Summit Press contract?" Mom demanded. I took a breath. "I signed a 3-book deal with Summit Press 6 months ago. Business strategy books based on my MBA research and case studies. Total advance for the 3 books is $1.4 million, paid out over the contract term." The backyard party had gone completely silent. 50 people were staring at us now. Vanessa found her voice first, indignant. "That's impossible. You've been writing in your spare time between MBA classes. Nobody makes $1.4 million from a book." "From 3 books, I corrected. "And plenty of business authors command advances like this, especially for multi-book deals with proven platforms." "Proven platform? You don't even have a blog." "I have something better. I have original research, case studies from Fortune 500 companies I worked with during my consulting internships, and frameworks that have been validated by MBA professors and business leaders. Publishers pay for valuable content, not follower counts. Uncle Dave was shaking his head, understanding what had happened. Isabel, you've been working on this book for 3 years. Your parents didn't know you'd sold it. I mentioned I was working with an agent. They thought I was being optimistic about publishing prospects. The memory was clear. 10 months ago, when my agent first started shopping the manuscript, I'd told my family at Sunday dinner. Dad had said, "Don't get your hopes up about publishing, honey. It's incredibly competitive." Mom had suggested I focus on graduating first and worry about hobbies later. Vanessa had said, "If you want to build a platform, you should start with Instagram like me." So I'd stopped updating them. I'd let them believe I was writing a book that would never sell while I negotiated a 7-figure deal. Dad sat down heavily at the nearest table. $1.4 million? For books about business strategy. The first book is titled, The Behavioral Economics of Organizational Change. It synthesizes academic research with practical case studies showing how companies can implement change management using behavioral science principles. Uncle Dave nodded enthusiastically. I read the manuscript. It's brilliant, Isabel. It fills a real gap in the market. Academic rigor meets practical application. Summit's marketing team is projecting strong corporate sales. Mom's hand was pressed against her throat. When you said you were working with an agent, we thought. You thought I was delusional about my publishing chances. I wasn't. I spent 2 years building the manuscript, 6 months working with Uncle Dave to refine the proposal, 3 months while my agent shopped it to publishers. Summit made the lead offer at $1.4 million. 2 other publishers bid over $1 million. Vanessa was staring at me like I was a stranger. Publishers wanted to pay you over $1 million. Publishers wanted to pay for content they believed would sell to business professionals, corporate training programs and MBA programs. The market for high-quality business strategy books is substantial. Aunt Marie spoke up hesitantly. Isabel, I saw something in Publishers Weekly last month about a major business book deal. Was that you? Probably. The deal was announced in the industry publications in February. I read that announcement, Uncle Dave confirmed. It was described as one of the largest advances for a debut business author in the past 5 years. Dad was shaking his head slowly. How did we not know about this? Because you never asked about my writing beyond polite questions. When I tried to explain the book's premise, you changed the subject. When I mentioned meeting with my agent, you suggested I be realistic about publishing. So I stopped trying to include you in the process. Mom's eyes were filling with tears. But $1.4 million, Isabel. That's $400,000 for the first book, paid in thirds. On signing, on delivery, on publication. I already received $133,000 on signing and another $133,000 when I delivered the final manuscript in March. The remaining $134,000 comes in September when the book publishes. Books 2 and 3 follow similar payment structures. Uncle Dave added, and that doesn't include royalties. If the book sells well beyond the advance earnings threshold, Isabel will receive additional royalty payments. Vanessa's face had gone from shocked to red. I've been bragging about making $400 from Instagram. You got $266,000 already from a book that hasn't even published yet. Yes. Though after agent commission and taxes, my actual take-home is lower. But yes. Dad found his voice. Where is all that money? Invested. I put $180,000 into index funds and kept $60,000 liquid for living expenses. When the publication payment comes in September, I'll invest another $90,000 and keep the rest for taxes and expenses. Mom looked stricken. You have $180,000 invested? Plus the $60,000 in cash, yes. When all advance payments are complete over the next 5 years, I'll have received approximately $950,000 after commissions and taxes, assuming I deliver all 3 books on schedule. Uncle Dave was watching this unfold with growing discomfort. I'm sorry, Isabel. I genuinely assumed they knew. When you asked me to introduce you to agents 3 years ago, I thought you'd have kept your family updated on the process. I tried to. They weren't interested in hearing about it. The graduation party had completely stopped. The celebration of my MBA had been overtaken by the revelation of my book deal. People were staring, whispering, trying to process. Aunt Marie asked, "What does the book actually cover, Isabel?" For the first time all day, someone was asking a genuine question about my work. It examines why organizational change initiatives fail. About 70% of them do, and provides frameworks based on behavioral economics for improving success rates. I look at loss aversion, status quo bias, social proof, and other psychological factors that influence how employees respond to change. That sounds incredibly sophisticated, Aunt Marie said. It is. I spent 2 years interviewing executives, reviewing academic literature, analyzing case studies from companies like Google, Amazon, and smaller firms. The research was the most challenging part. Uncle Dave nodded. The manuscript is 320 pages of dense, well-researched content. It's going to be required reading in business schools and corporate training programs. Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, her voice small, "So when you said you were too busy to help me with my blog strategy last year?" I was on deadline for the manuscript. I was writing 2,000 words per day while finishing my MBA coursework, working with my agent on revisions and preparing the book proposal. I didn't have time to help you optimize Instagram engagement. But you didn't tell me you were writing a book that would make you a millionaire. I told you I was working on a book. You said blogging and social media were where the real opportunities are. So I let you focus on your path while I focused on mine. Dad was processing, his analytical mind working through implications. What happens after you receive all the advance money? If the book sells well, I'll start receiving royalty checks. Business books typically sell steadily over many years to corporate buyers. If I'm lucky, the book could generate income for a decade or more. And the other 2 books? Book 2 is about decision-making frameworks in uncertain environments. Book 3 examines organizational culture and performance metrics. I've already outlined both. I need to write them over the next 4 years to fulfill the contract. Mom wiped her eyes. So you're going to be a published author? In September, yes. Summit has a strong marketing plan. Corporate speaking engagements, podcast interviews, business conference presentations. They want to position me as a thought leader in organizational change. Uncle Dave added, the publisher is investing significant resources in Isabel's career. They see this as a long-term relationship, not just 3 books. Vanessa asked quietly, "Do you even need a job now? With all that money?" "I'll need to work eventually, yes. The advance money is spread over 5 years, and writing 3 books while building a platform is essentially a full-time job. But I have flexibility most people don't have." "That must be nice." I studied my sister, hearing the bitterness in her voice. "It's the result of 3 years of 60-hour weeks while completing an MBA. I wrote at 5 a.m. before classes. I wrote on weekends when you were posting Instagram stories. I chose delayed gratification over immediate validation. Different choices, different outcomes." Dad spoke quietly. "I told you writing books wasn't a viable career path. You did. You were wrong." "I was wrong," he acknowledged. "I'm sorry." The graduation party slowly resumed around us, but the energy had fundamentally shifted. The celebration was supposed to be about my MBA, but now everyone was processing the book deal instead. As afternoon turned to evening and guests began leaving, various family members approached me. Aunt Marie wanted to know about the publishing process. Cousin Tom asked about behavioral economics. Even Vanessa's friend asked how to get a literary agent. Mom pulled me aside as we cleaned up. "Can we talk? Really talk? About what?" "About your writing. About the book. About everything we missed." For the first time in 3 years, my mother was asking about my actual work instead of dismissing it as a hobby. "The book is everything I learned in my MBA translated into practical frameworks that companies can actually use," I explained. "It's not theoretical. It's actionable. That's why publishers were willing to pay for it." "Can I read it?" "You can read the final version when it publishes in September." "I want to read it now. I want to understand what you've been working on while we weren't paying attention." I pulled out my phone and emailed her the final manuscript. It's 320 pages. It's dense. But it's good work. Dad joined us, his expression serious. "Isabel, I owe you an apology. A real one. I waited. I dismissed your writing because it didn't fit my definition of a viable career. I assumed you were being unrealistic, naive about how hard publishing is. I didn't take you seriously. No, you didn't. Can you forgive me? I looked at my father, who'd spent 3 years subtly suggesting I give up on writing, now realizing his daughter had secured a 7-figure book deal. I forgive you, but I need you to understand something. I didn't keep the book deal secret to hurt you. I stopped sharing updates because you made it clear you didn't believe in the project. I should have believed in you. Yes, you should have. Uncle Dave found me as the last guests were leaving. I'm proud of you, kid. You did something most people only dream about. Thank you for introducing me to Rachel, I said, referring to my agent. None of this happens without that connection. Rachel was excited from the first proposal. She knew you had something special. Vanessa approached hesitantly. Can we talk? Uncle Dave excused himself, leaving us alone by the now empty cake table. I've been a bitch to you about your writing, Vanessa said. For years. Yes, you have. I kept telling you to build a social media platform like me. I implied your book was a waste of time. I remember. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Thank you. Can you teach me? Not about writing, but about building something real instead of just chasing followers. I studied my sister carefully. What do you mean? I have 85,000 followers and I made $400 last month. You wrote a book and made $266,000. My engagement might be high, but your ROI is insane. Despite everything, I almost smiled. Different models. Social media can be lucrative if done right. But it requires constant content creation and platform dependence. My book is a product that can sell for years with minimal additional work. Will you teach me how you did it? The research, the writing process, the agent search, all of it. If you're serious about learning, yes. I'm serious. Driving home that evening, I thought about the day's revelations. My graduation party had turned into an unexpected unveiling of my success. The shock on their faces when Uncle Dave mentioned the advance. The silence when I explained the 3-book deal. The dawning realization that they'd completely underestimated me. But here's what struck me. Their knowing changed nothing about what I'd built. The contract was signed. The first book was edited and ready for publication. The advance money was invested. My success existed whether they acknowledged it or not. Their pride was welcome. Their apologies were appreciated. Their new interest felt validating. But I'd already validated myself through 3 years of early mornings, countless revisions, and professional recognition from publishers who believed in my work. I'd already won. I'd won when Summit Press made their offer. I'd won when I held the signed contract. I'd won when I received that first advance check and realized I'd actually done it. Their recognition was just the epilogue to a story I'd already written. Literally. I pulled into my apartment complex, the modest place I'd lived throughout business school, funded by advance money they didn't know existed. Tomorrow I'd review page proofs for the September publication. Next week I'd record a podcast interview about organizational change. Next month I'd start outlining book 2. My life would continue exactly as it had been. Focused, disciplined, and built on work that mattered to me regardless of external validation. The only difference was that now my family finally understood what Uncle Dave and my agent had known for months. I was already a successful author. The book was already sold. The career was already launched. And I'd built all of it while they were telling me to be realistic and get a real job. That night, I received a text from Mom. I started reading your manuscript. I'm on page 40. Isabel, this is brilliant. I'm so sorry we didn't see this. I replied simply, thank you. Keep reading. Because the book would speak for itself. Just like my success had been speaking all along. They just hadn't been listening.